Dobrý večer. Dnes přivítáme na plovárně herce, kterého kritici často oceňují za jeho výkon ve filmu, který ale jinak strhají. A to už tedy musí být nějak přesvědčivý výkon. A to on taky je. Jméno Alan Rickman vám možná v první chvíli tak moc neřekne, ale hned si ho vybavíte. Milovníci filmů o Harry Potterovi ho budou znát jako démonického profesora Snapea. Milovníci akčních snímků jako zloducha Hanse Krubera z filmu Smrtonosná past. Milovníci romantických filmů si na něj vzpomenou jako na záletného biznismena ve snímku Láska nebeská. A kdybychom mluvili anglicky, tak si ho můžeme užít i na divadle, kde hraje velmi hojně. K výčtu jeho cen letos přibyl ještě Christian na Febiofestu a díky tomu ho můžeme i dnes přivítat na plovárně. Naším hostem je pan Alan Rickman. Mr. Rickman, you started to attend school, drama school, when you were at the age of 26.
5, 6.
Yeah. Did you really need that to study acting?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Absolutely. Why wouldn't I?
Well, I guess, it's the matter of talent very much. And if there is talent, you can make it without having any kind of school.
I'm sure we could point at all sorts of actors now who you go, well, they didn't need training, but then they'd probably be people who are not appearing in the theatre, and they're not doing 8 shows a week for 6 months, and they're not losing their voice after 1 week.
That's
so
true.
It's an instrument, and it needs to be worked on. Yehudi Menuhin has a violin. He can put it away in a case, or had a violin and put it away in a case. This is the instrument, and we put it on the tube and on the buses and take it in the streets and then expect it to walk on stage. And somehow this instrument can get in the way of your imagination. It can interrupt your imagination. And from my experience, although drama school can be a very confusing time for a student, it's all about becoming free.
And I think sometimes it's quite important that you meet actors of the same age, and sometimes it results in a long life collaboration.
Well, yeah, and at 25 and 26, I was not meeting. I was meeting 18-year-olds. But there were also, we had a wonderful principal at RADA, Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, and he believed in taking people of all ages. I wasn't ready to study at 18. It would have been a disaster.
Yeah?
Yeah, because I wasn't ready in my head. And also it was very important to me at 18 that I studied at art school first. So drama school, it wasn't about coming late. It was about doing it after art school.
Well, you studied you were a studied designer, and you had your design studio. Could you use something from your design knowledge, in creating your own costumes or something like that later?
Absolutely, and also, when I started to direct in the theatre and on film, of course, being trained at art school was invaluable, and it started to make sense of going to art school first and then drama school. So of course I interfere.
Yeah, do you?
Quite a lot. Yeah, I'm aware of the outline that a costume can make, and on the other hand, I'm also perfectly willing to be told to shut up and just put it on.
Yeah. Was there a subject in a drama school that you would have difficulties with?
I had a lot of problems with the voice teachers. Because
teachers?
I had a lot of difficulty. Yeah.
It would be the last thing on my mind. I would think you could have difficulties with a voice teacher.
One teacher said to me, your voice sounds as if it's coming out of the back end of a drain pipe. And you have a spastic soft palate. And all of this was doubtless true, and that was one of the reasons it was one of the reasons for a great deal of work. Because, you have expert teachers that can make your voice travel forward rather than backwards.
Well, but I guess your voice is kind of your trademark. I would never think about you could have any difficulties with it.
And nobody can hear their voice in the way that other people hear it. It does, whenever I hear it on screen or on a recording, I hardly know that that's me. So.
One of your first theatre jobs was Royal Shakespeare's Company?
Well, I was in repertory theatre all over the regions in England in the days when, we used to have a union that meant that when you came out of drama school, you had to work in the regions for 44 weeks before you could ever work somewhere like the Royal Shakespeare Company.
Yeah. I guess it's quite a good idea.
Yeah, it's an apprenticeship, and you can make your mistakes without it ruining your career.
Oh yes, that's right, that's right. But Royal Shakespeare Company, it's a lot of performances. The system is quite tough there. How many shows did you have a week?
Well, you can't do more than 8, but 8 performances. But I think we were in. It's a repertoire, so I've been there twice now, and I think both times it was maybe 4 plays, and by the end of the season, you have 4 plays in your head.
Yes. Well, that's not such a big deal for a place. If you are in a repertoire theatre, that's quite normal.
Yeah.
But the number of the performances is high, that you really play every evening and twice on...
Well, usually not Sunday. No, not Sunday. You have Sunday off. But then I get confused because when you go to America, and I've performed on Broadway now a few times, and there they do play on Sundays, but not on Mondays.
Yeah.
Which I prefer.
Yeah. But in our theatre, we had always a feeling that the Sunday audience is kind of weird.
Why?
Well, I cannot explain it. Weird people coming on Sundays. And
you mean they're coming out of the dark?
I don't know. It was another mood of the audience, and they somehow, we say, oh yeah, you see, Sunday. What can do nothing about it?
No, not in New York.
No?
Sunday audiences are great because the streets are not quite so noisy, and they've had lunch, so it's not till 3 o'clock, and the actors are very happy because they know at 6 o'clock on Sunday they're free until Tuesday.
Yeah.
So there's a kind of holiday atmosphere.
Yeah, it's great to work with excellent directors. Isn't it? Cannot it bring some value if you work with bad directors?
Absolutely, you grow muscles because you find you have to direct yourself, or you have to get together with your fellow actors and create an energy. Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't want to do it very often.
Yeah, sure. Are you good in resisting?
Directors?
Yeah.
Well, a friend of mine said, that the rehearsal room should be like a marketplace.
Yes.
And I think in a healthy rehearsal room, that's true, because I'm very protective of the actor's process, whether as an actor or a director. And I think you must always ask questions. The air must be full of questions and uncertainty. And I always think that one of the best things a director can ever say in early rehearsals, if asked a question, is, I don't know.
Yeah.
Then I feel reassured, because then I feel that they're not so, and that we'll find out together.
It's great if you have a buyer. If you bring some goods on the marketplace and there's a buyer, because there are directors who don't buy anything. They are just selling their ideas. Yeah,
but also you can have a director who takes your goods and picks it up and says, this is rubbish. Throws it away.
And then are other directors who takes your goods and they say, oh, this belongs to me. It's mine.
That, not so healthy. But then they pick up your goods and then they polish it, and then they repair it and they say, now it's better.
Yeah. Not bad, yeah. during the film festival in Karlovy Vary, we had a guest who came from England. She was an actress, British. Her name is Romola Garai. Do you know her?
I don't know her personally, but I've seen her work. Yeah, she's a fine actress.
Yeah. And she was in the Royal Shakespeare Company as well. And she said, you are so blessed that you can play Shakespeare in the translations, that you can have modern translations. And we have to use this ancient Shakespeare's language. What do you think about it?
I might have to have a big argument with her about that.
Is it still enjoyable?
Well, it's the work of genius.
Well, sure.
And the language is a huge part of that genius.
Yeah.
The choice of words, the philosophy, the intellect, and the rhythm. And the rhythm is from then, not now. And the punctuation is from then and not now. And if you let Shakespeare teach you the punctuation and the rhythm and where the breaks are, tell you what he's saying, and he's showing you how to speak it. I don't want it translated into modern English. I have no. Well, it's a pointless act. So I would have to have a very big argument with her about that.
You know, in Czech Republic we have a lot of translations of Shakespeare from the 20s, 30s, and so on, and some of the translations are contemporary, and they are very good.
Yeah, I'm sure, and that's fine.
But we cannot play it in English, and you are right,
should.
because if we are playing the old Czech authors, we also don't translate it into modern.
No, and the other part of Shakespeare's genius, of course, is that actually now nearly all of them are given some incredibly modern interpretations and productions. The themes are universal and everlasting, and so you can put it in modern dress and give it a modern energy, but still use the text as it is.
It's quite incredible that one person could write all of it. There's a lot of argues if it was one person. What do you think? What is your opinion?
Every bit of research and common sense says it couldn't possibly have been this man. Because he didn't have the education, his children were illiterate. Where did he get the language from, the vocabulary? So there are all sorts of theories, and there are some very famous proponents of the fact that it wasn't Shakespeare, that it was the Earl of Southampton or whoever. The only way you're ever going to find out is if somebody invents a time machine, so we go back and have a look. And see who it was. But it doesn't occupy my mind too much.
I have to say I hate all kind of fundamentalism, including the artistic fundamentalism. And I like very much that you agreed to play in an action movie, because you are a Shakespearean actor, intellectual. But I guess it might be a lot of fun to do Die Hard.
Well, it was, because I was completely ignorant. I had never made a film before, never mind an action film. I'd never made a film before. The idea of doing an action movie had never occurred to me.
Yeah, I guess so.
Clearly, I was ahead of the game and ahead of time, because now everybody's doing action movies or picking up a gun and shooting. You know, I see that there's a movie just opened in England with Mark Rylance holding a gun, you know, one of our greatest Shakespearean actors. So everybody's doing it now. Then nobody was doing that, so it was a bit of a surprise to everybody and me. But with hindsight, what was very good about that film and what made me able to do it is that it had a very good script and it's witty.
Yes, exactly.
It
was on the edge.
Yeah, it's not a stupid film.
Yes. I would say it has some kind of humor in it.
It's very funny.
Does an action movie need a different acting approach?
Not at all. I didn't know. I wouldn't have known what other approach to bring to it other than the one I had, which is, who is this person? What's his background? What did he have for breakfast? What is he thinking? In order to build a character. And because I applied that logic to it, I moved him from being dressed in a lot of terrorist gear, which he was, according to the producers and the writer. And I said, well, what would happen if we put him in a suit and made him more urbane?
Yeah.
And that happened, and then as a result of that came a scene in the film where I pretend to be an American, and he thinks I'm one of the hostages, Bruce Willis. So, you know, there's an example of where pursuing a process and a logic actually affected the outcome of the film.
I cannot avoid a question you got 1,000 times, but your death fall at the end of it, those days it was not so many special effects available. So you really had to do it yourself? Mm-hmm. It was
40 feet.
40 feet. Any kind of training? Did you have
Fortunately, yes, 1 day's training, because I think they might have been in real trouble. Yeah, I was dropped from 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet, just to make sure that I obeyed crucial instructions, which were to spread my arms and legs, because if I didn't, if you fall without creating a kind of star shape in the air, your body will turn and you'll land on your head and you'll be dead. Possibly.
It's quite scary, yeah. But then it's easy to act it.
No acting was required.
No.
That's a real expression on my face.
I guess so. What were you thinking in the moment you were falling? Any kind of
you don't have thoughts.
Memories?
It's why I like roller coasters.
Yeah. You do?
Yeah, I love them because they stop you thinking.
Yeah.
You don't have any thoughts. You don't have any thoughts when you're falling 40 feet.
That's right. Yeah.
It's good to empty your head. Maybe they should. Maybe they should make it a ride at Disneyland or something.
Was there something you could learn from Bruce Willis?
You learn from everybody you work with.
How to hold the gun, or is it?
No. He's very focused and he's very organized, and it's not easy to fulfill people's expectations in those roles. You know, you have to be. It was okay for me to be imperfect. He has to be sort of perfect and still ironic and witty, and that was what was good about the film, is that, you know, he's cutting his feet because he's stupidly walking around with nothing on his feet, with broken glass, and he's got a strong wife with a broken marriage, and so he's got lots of vulnerable areas, but he still has to be the hero.
I would like to talk for a while about the movie that is not so often being discussed, but I liked the movie very much, and that's Bottle Shock. It's based on a true story, is it?
Absolutely true story, yeah. I was playing Stephen Spurrier, who's a real person who really did all that, yeah.
Did you meet him?
I spoke to him on the phone, and he reminded me that we had met, which I'd forgotten, in Italy some years before.
Well, we should say maybe not everyone has seen the movie, that it's a movie about wine, about American wine.
It's a very famous story which made the cover of Time magazine. He was running something called l'Académie du Vin in Paris, and he wanted to advertise it more. So he decided to have a competition back in the 1970s with American white and red wines versus French. Right, red and white wines, and it was a blind tasting, so all the bottles were wrapped. Nobody knew which was which, and the judges were all very famous French chefs and sommeliers, and America won both the red and the white wine. So it was, you know, quelle horreur. To the French.
And I guess it must be wonderful shooting.
Well, it was, except that we shot it in Sonoma, pretending to beat Paris. So it was actually insane, the final competition, because it was taking place in the open air, where, of course, all those white wines would have been ruined because it was so hot. But, you know, that's the movies.
Do you have some still bottles left in your cellar?
From the film?
Yeah.
I
should have some.
I do have some. It was Chateau Montelena that won the white wine competition, and yes, I do have some of that.
Yeah.
Very good it is too.
I'm sure it is. I guess after Harry Potter, you did a lot of discussions and I guess also Q&As. And
no, I've never talked much about Harry Potter.
No.
It's true.
Really?
Yeah, well, at the time, the character, his story was so, it was very unclear where he was going, and there was a lot of mystery surrounding it. So I always refused to discuss it publicly. Now it's over, it's a different thing a bit. Although there is now a whole generation of children reading the books who are still on book 3 and don't know what's happening. And the sensible parents are the ones that don't let them watch the videos until they've read the books.
Yeah.
And I'm very aware of the fact that those books, it's not invade children's imaginations, but they live. You watch a child reading one of those books and they are lost inside the book. It's a very rare privilege to be part of that. And I was very protective of the children, really.
Sure.
And just saying, I'm not talking about this because they believe in what they're watching, and I'm not going to give anything away.
Because what I was thinking, that the kids' audience, they don't pretend anything. They are really pretty straight. And I guess, what were their reactions? Or what are their reactions if you recognize you? If they recognize
Mostly
you
they don't.
on the street? Or
no, because I knew, it's a bit like Ralph Fiennes and I, we both knew that we had a pretty good disguise.
Yeah.
You know, he really has a nose. Just CGI removes it.
Yeah.
And I don't go around with black hair and black contact lenses. So it's, mostly children don't recognize. They only know if they see the black hair.
What kind of books did you read when you've been a kid?
I wasn't a great reader as a child. I would read whatever I was, being told to read at school. So, it would be Dickens, or I guess there would be the equivalent, because I like getting lost inside a big, long tale. But pretty soon, when I got to be at school and we were studying English, it was always set books. So there was no time to read in a kind of relaxed way. And also I suppose my activity was to draw rather than read.
I know you were the only one from the cast who knew more than the others about your character.
It's actually not true. I only knew a very small, vague piece of information, which wasn't very specific. It just allowed me to think that he was a little more complicated. But I knew no more than anybody else, really.
Well, I was just thinking if Jo Rowling would give you this information if you wouldn't ask.
She wouldn't.
She wouldn't?
No, and I did ask.
But it's quite important for the character you played to know.
Yeah, but it's not her business to worry about that. She's going to just sit there and be glad that the movies are being made and make sure the script is something she agrees with. But when I asked to talk to her, she was happy to do it.
So you think she wouldn't tell you?
Well, she wouldn't give me any strong pieces of information.
Yeah.
She just gave me a small clue that he might not be all he seemed. That's all.
Nowadays you are not only a successful actor, but a successful director as well. Do you think you have more understanding for other directors now than you had before?
It's an incredibly difficult job.
It is.
Because, when you're directing in the theatre, there's you and the actors, and then it's on. Directing in the cinema also involves fundraising, getting the money together.
It's a big part of it, I guess.
It's a huge part of before you can even begin. And then when you've made the film, then you're dealing with distributors and producers and publicity. So the job reinvents itself all the time. The plus side, of course, is that when you're making a film, you have incredible support from a crew who are all brilliant at their jobs, because if they weren't, they would be fired. And that's not the same in the theatre, where you're absolutely right. You go, working with an idiot now, so I will save my own skin. But That's really not true in the cinema.
Yeah.
And I think that the fact that you have amazing crews behind the camera or on sound or costume or location departments or whatever allows film directors to be as individual and idiosyncratic and maybe sometimes a little crazy.
Well, Mr. Rickman, thank you so much for sharing your time with us. It was a very nice conversation.
Great pleasure for me. Thank you very much.
Dnes byl naším hostem na plovárně pan Alan Rickman.